Hey you guys, Danny here. Welcome to my April wrap up. April felt a lot more satisfying than the first couple months. I feel like I really got some stuff done in April. So I'm going to start just getting right into it. I'm going to start on my bullet journal, just kind of showing my bullet journal simply because of my card of the month is in there. So I did this very like esoteric, like palmistry, face reading kind of vibe in my journal. Very simple thing. But then I did my card of the month, which was the Chariot, my main energy for the month. And that really helped. I really loved having that. Like my card of the month, normally I would just like pull it and be like, cool, but I never really expanded on it. And doing that in my bullet journal this month, I did it at the beginning and then I came back at the end of the month and then I wrote more thoughts. So like the energy that was pulling forward at the beginning of the month really shifted and changed by the end of the month, but it all had so much to do with this Chariot energy. Like the first part of the month was like that will and determination to like get things started and get things done and kind of go forth and really take charge of a situation, which was super valid. And then towards the end of the month, it really opened up those like Cancer vibes, right? So I'm a Cancer. And the Chariot, although a lot of times I'm like, it doesn't really feel right to be a Cancer card, but okay, I was proven wrong this month. I really felt it this month because I was really able to kind of like explore and I don't want to say like alter because that's not really the right word, but like, I don't know, shift and guide my energy emotionally at the end of the month. Like everything sort of expanded. It's like the roads open and I was able to like navigate through, that might be the word I was looking for, in a way that I never had before. And I was like, wow, this really is a lot of Chariot energy, that water, that emotional area of it, right? So like I really enjoyed that. I really loved exploring this card for the whole month and doing it in a way like I had to look at it. You know what I mean? Because I'm so good at like, even though I'll pull my card, I might even write something and then I put it away. It's not something that I use on the daily. So doing it in my journal and like having to flip through it and see it every single time was like keeping it in the forefront. So I really enjoyed doing that. I think I'm going to do that again for May because I'm really far behind on my bullet journal. I'm gonna try to do that today too. So that's what was that for April. So speaking of tarot, what did we look at in April? April, we looked at the Illuminated Tarot and the playing cards, which are basically the tarot. We looked at that. We looked at My Sweet Love, the Spellcaster's Tarot. Of course, we had our Game of Thrones, since it's Game of Thrones time. And then we had last week's Mesquite Tarot. It's the only one I didn't take out the jar. It's a bag, Danny. It's a bag. Which is the Mesquite Tarot. Oh! And if I had to pick, I mean, I'm gonna pick Game of Thrones because it's my favorite thing. But if I really had to pick a favorite deck that I used for most of the month, like that just kept wanting to be in my presence and I wanted to be in its presence, and that would definitely be the Mesquite Tarot. There was something about it this month, like it's still hanging out with me on my desk. There's just something about the whole vibe of it. It could be the simplicity of it. It could be the kind of like chill factor of it, which is kind of different from most of my things, that I'm just kind of digging right now. I'm feeling it. And it's like very like springy looking, like visually springy. Matter of fact, look, it even matches some of my little matches my shirt, kind of, you know. It's got those spring vibes. And that could be a lot of why it just wants, like, I just want to be in that energy right now. Because it's spring! Okay. So yeah, if I had to pick that, it would definitely be the Mesquite Tarot. I want to keep calling it the Marquee Tarot. That, I don't even know if that's a thing. But it's not the Marquee, it is the Mesquite. So I don't know if I said that right or not. So let's move on. This is going to kind of be a short one. Like, I feel like I did a lot of stuff this month, but it was like other things, like a lot of business stuff. I did a lot of like altering my Instagram. If you guys follow me at Grey Moon Mystic, I started in April this like new kind of aesthetic there. I wanted something that I could be like blogging the way that I really like to do, which, I put my picture and then I blog underneath. I really wanted to focus more on like having a certain what's the word? I wanted to create a template of like as a guide, I'm always going to have these things where I make sure that I'm talking about the things that I want to talk about, making sure that I'm exploring the things that I'm doing, as well as keeping it like, this is me, this is who I am, this is why I do it. You know what I mean? So I really focused on the artistry of creating a template for my Instagram moving forward in a way that still feels like me. Like I didn't want something that was like, I'm using other people's pictures, I'm only doing one thing and I'm not incorporating, like I want to bring everything, because what I do and who I am all kind of coalesce into this one thing, and I just wanted to share it in a way that was beautiful and nice. And I don't know, I'm just kind of having fun. Like, why not explore Instagram as an art piece itself? So that's kind of what I'm doing. Other art, I've been working on this piece back here. My patrons have been seeing this. I'm gonna go and grab it. Patrons have been seeing the progress. This is just kind of base stuff right now. But I got a lot of texture on here. I've been like texturizing. There's a bunch of stuff under here. In my initial little sketch, you can see where I've like kind of altered things. But yeah, this is a piece in progress. I've been working on that throughout the month, and I've been taking it slow because I sometimes have a tendency to be like, well, I'm gonna start this, and like, even though I'm like, I don't exactly know where I want to go, I'll just put something on there and like end up screwing it up and hating it. So with this moth, there's a very specific vibe that I'm going for, and there are some pieces where I'm like, I just don't know how I want to do that yet. So I'm really taking my time with this painting because a lot of stuff needs to dry as I go, because I do have a lot of textures. Like underneath the paint, there's a lot of paper and stuff like that to create a texture underneath. Like when you get up close, you can really see it. But then of course I also have burlap on there, which I had to glue down. I had to make sure that everything was set and dry before I put wet paint on there, and had to come up and move. So like, I'm really taking my time with this one. So I'm really just like, when I'm feeling those vibes, I go and I do it. And when I don't, then I don't. And it's something that I'm exploring in like patience and enjoying the journey. That's what this moth piece is about. So I'm doing that. So as far as other art goes, I did some stuff for my grimoire, which I've decided that I think I'm gonna wait until either maybe the summertime or maybe even around Samhain to do an updated grimoire tour. Instead of trying to do it each month, because some months I put in a lot of stuff and other months I put in like one or two things, or the stuff that I put in is just like writing, so it's not always interesting. So I've decided to do that, but I will show you what I created artistically in here, because I did. For whatever reason, I just wanted this to be in here because it was like a big pour out of just all the things, and that's this piece here. I did marker and gel pen, and I did some, I used to call it like like collaging. I don't know if you would consider that like collaging though. That's what I called it as a kid, but I don't know. But I drew out a heart, and then I, did different things for each different ventricle. I have the actual definition. I don't know if you can see that, of heart in there. I got some flames at the bottom. And then I went over it with some sealer so it wouldn't get messed up. So that's the shininess. So I did that. It was one of those pieces that I was driving home, and like, matter of fact, I talked about it in my creativity video. It was just one of those things, like, I saw it and it had to come out. I didn't know how I was going to do it or where I was going to do it, but like, I got home and I immediately gravitated toward my grimoire, and I was like, I'm pouring this in here because it just feels like it belongs here. So that means that there's a lot of magic behind it and a lot of opening and exploring to do. And I love that it was the heart, and I love that, again, that kind of helped in that chariot sort of way. So it really unfolded. And then I guess I'll show you guys this too, because this is a piece of art. I drew a hawthorn branch and some berries, and I did a little watercolor on top of it. This is a hawthorn page that I made for my patrons, and I kind of zhuzhed it up to put it in my book. So we got that, and that was kind of it for my art, because I've got a new obsession, and it really stifled me. Again, I talked about this in my creativity video that I did the other day for a little bit. I have been obsessed with a podcast in April. I have learned to control my listening thus far in May. I allow myself at least one a day, maybe two if it's a mini-sode. I have been listening to My Favorite Murder. Guys, if you are into true crime or you love hearing like murder stories or serial killer stories, since I was really young, I've always been fascinated with those kind of things. Matter of fact, I don't know if I've ever told that story. When I was in college, I was so bored in class that I started following the staircase murder. This is Michael Peterson, and his wife had fallen down the stairs and he was on trial. And this was going on while I was in college. And every time I would go sit in class, I'd pull up the crime library because they were reporting on the trial almost daily. They had like graphs and pictures, and like I got really into it because I had been really into it as a teenager. So it was just something that popped up in the news, and I kind of got sucked in college. So when I was bored, I'd finish my work and I'd do that. And I dove into there, and then when I was finished reading the trial for the day, I would go and explore all the serial killer libraries, right? Like all these things. So when a friend of mine was like, have you ever heard of My Favorite Murder? I was like, no. She's like, oh, it's this podcast. I'm like, I never really listen to podcasts. I literally deleted the podcast app from my phone. Like, it's not something that I ever explored, really. And she's like, oh, they talk about all these murders. It's funny, and it's like lighthearted in certain sense, where it's not just all like, oh, this is a real big freaking bummer, So I started listening. This is by Georgia Hardstark and Karen Kilgareth, and I fell in love. I fell in love with these girls. These women. They are funny, they are personable, and it's just fun to listen to a podcast that sounds like you were literally sitting in a living room with your friends discussing these things. So it was just a really great time, but it was a time suck. Like I was like, I want to hear them all, but there's like, I don't know, they're in the hundreds, and most of them are an hour long or 30 minutes long. I'm like, I'm not gonna catch up anytime soon. So dial it back a bit, just keep chugging along. It's just something that I just fell into. I couldn't stop listening. So that hindered a bit of my art, and that definitely hindered my reading time, because I was like, I'm going to listen to another episode. So I do recommend My Favorite Murder if you're into true crime. They don't really go gruesome. They don't go like any kind of like grotesque, like, and there were entrails that span the, like, they don't do that. These are two girls that are like, ew, poor baby, like, you know, so it's not full of gore. It's a really fun time. So anyway, My Favorite Murder, great podcast. For my reading, what I did manage to squeeze in was something that I passed over this in the library. Matter of fact, this is my library book. I need to return it this week. I was actually looking for an R.L. Stine book because I used to have a nice Fear Street collection. I loved Fear Street. I think my first book was My Evil Summer or One Evil Summer. I loved it. And I was like, I really just want to read some Fear Street. Like, this is what I want to read. So I go to the library and I look, and they have one book from my time. They have a couple of his new stuff. I'm like, I'm not interested in that. I want old school Fear Street. So they had one book, but it was like the third in the series of like a Fear Street Saga series. And I was like, well, I'm not going to get that. I was really disappointed. We have no good bargain, like, used book places in my area, which is super disappointing. So maybe next time I take a trip to a different city, or if I head over to Texas, which I'd like to do soon. Anyway, I will go to, like, Half Price Books or a good used bookstore and see if I can find some, because I had a really great collection. And then I think it was, like, when I was going to college or when I was moving here or there, I was like, I'm just going to give all these away, and it was such a mistake. But I mean, like, how would I have known? I'm like, when I'm 34, I'm really going to want to read these. Like, really? No. So I gave them away. So now I want to try to find some. Like, I would love to reread a couple of those just because I enjoyed them so much, and they're like a quick read. Anyway, all of that to say this. When I saw this on the shelf, Lyndon was playing, so I was like, let me look around a little bit and see if anything catches my eye. I saw this book, and I was like, what is this? So I read on the back about this, like, these weird names, and there's, like, goblins and elves, and I was like, okay, I'm down. Let's do it. Because when I opened it up, I saw that there were, like, chunks of illustrations in the middle of the chapters. And I was like, what is this? There were incredibly, like, strange, almost kind of creepy looking action-packed scenes, and I was like, I'm down for this. So I snatched it up. This is The Assassination of Brangwain Spurge. And so I went through it, I read it, and it was a fun read. It's basically about, you know, the elves and the goblins have been fighting for hundreds of years, if I'm not mistaken, and they finally created this space of diplomacy. So they send someone over there to offer a gift to the Goblin King, or I guess you call him a king, an emperor, whatever. Is this really strange, like, alien type thing? I don't know. I mean, I read it, but I didn't read it. No. He came from elsewhere. He's like a kind of alien thing, but he rules the goblins, so whatever you want to think of him as. Anyway, they were going to go and give this gift that they found that appeared to be a goblin artifact in the elven country. They send a random person to go and bring it. He's just a historian. They were like, oh, let's choose this guy. And there was definitely some shady stuff going on, spying, attempted assassinations, actual assassinations. It was very interesting. And it was lighthearted in ways, it was funny in ways, and it really spoke to, like, don't always believe what you've been told, because, like, you hear about the elven history and then you hear about the goblin history and you're just like, someone is skewing what actually happened, which we all know that that's always what happens. But in this case, it was like, how haven't you figured? Like, it was so blatantly obvious. But again, we have that in all countries, I think. when you start segregating, this is my land, this is your land kind of idea, when stuff goes down, everybody's got their own opinion. But it kind of explored that, and it kind of took down, as a reader, it took down your kind of like prejudice, like maybe these are some crazy goblins, or maybe these are some crazy elves, and like kind of broke that down for you first, and you're like, no, this is a complete misunderstanding. Like I don't think they understand what's really going on. It was one of those things where like you're privy to it, you realize it, but your characters don't. And so I'm not going to tell you whether they ever do or not. I'm going to leave that to the mysteries if you ever want to read this. But this is by M.T. Anderson and Eugene Yelchin? I don't know if I said that right. But it was definitely, it was interesting. It was fun. I would give this a solid 3 stars. Like, it wasn't anything spectacular. It wasn't like, oh my god, I love this book. But it was fun. Like, it was a nice, easy read. And, I kind of enjoyed it. So, for like a passing glance, it was a good book. I think that's the only one that I actually read. I lost space in my book. I think I used my last space in my bullet journal. Yes. See, look. I finished it. I don't know why I'm like, I'm going to only give myself half a page. Maybe I can read like 5 books this year. I don't know why I did that to myself. But anyway, yeah, that's the only one I actually like had a physical book and I read. And then I listened to 2 other ones because, again, podcast. I'm going to do better. So what did I read or listen to? I still say read. I feel like I read it. I just didn't do the reading. Somebody told it to me. Let's see. Where are we? My audiobooks that I listened to, one came by recommendation from the New Age Lunatic. She left a comment in my March wrap-up video that was like, hey, if you really enjoyed the Caitlin Doughty When Smoke Gets in Your Eyes, you might really like this book. So I immediately went and looked on my library app and they had the audiobook and I was like, I'm doing this now. And that was Stiff by Mary Roach, The Curious Lives of Human Cadavers. Y'all, I loved this book. I know, there's been like a very, like, there's been a theme now. Danny's going into the dark side. I am. This is the stuff that I read and listened to and explored as a kid. So, like, it's just something that's coming back. I don't know. It's a weird thing. So, we have Stiff by Mary Roach. This actually was so interesting. I love the way she approached it. She was kind of funny. You know, she told a great story within this, like, kind of like, this is what happens when you donate your body to science. It's like, she talked about some very interesting things about, you know, some bodies that are used in crash testing and how, like, sometimes they only need your shoulder or they only need this to see, like, will an arm break or will this happen? Will that happen? And it's just so interesting to me how useful this is in certain sense. And it's like, it's such a weird thing being human and then considering death and talking about death. And it's like, oh, you can't sometimes like disconnect from your body. Like, if they want to use this piece here and that piece there and then cremate the rest, is like, why is that a big deal? Because it's really hard to be like, I don't want my body torn apart, just use it for that, you know? So it's just an interesting way to kind of like explore those feelings and listen to these kind of things or read these kind of things that are just like, wow, you know? But here's the thing. I watched an episode of CSI that kind of showed this, but she talks about a place where I believe it's maybe like a medical college or a forensic, whatever. I'm not going to say because I don't remember. Anyway, there's this place where you go in and there's this like kind of just wilderness, this like outdoor space. It's, you know, covered in, I mean, like enclosed, whatever. But it's where they literally like lay your body out and they allow the natural elements to do their thing. And they learn about human decomposition, length of time, what this looks like, what that looks like, if they're wearing certain things, if they're not wearing anything, if they're buried in a shallow grave, if they're just exposed to the elements. And it's like, that to me, I'm like, oh, can you just put my body out and just like let it do its thing? Just like sit it on the ground and let it go, let it do its thing. I would love that. And I told my friend that, and she was like, no. Please, no. Like, the thought of this is just awful. And I'm like, I get it, but like a part of me is like, it's just so natural. Just like let your body do, because like you can't do whatever. Anyway, I know it's like a weird topic, but it was a really good book, and it just gets you thinking like, man, if I could specify. But it is something that I like to think about, like, what do I really want? Or what would I really like? At the end of the day, it will no longer be my body. It will be in the possession of whoever at the end of my life. And that's a thing. So it was I don't want to say it was a fun read, like, but it was a very interesting read. And I loved to hear about these different ways that as our bodies no longer belong to us and we give them to like science and stuff like that, like what that means and what it does and how it's beneficial. So yeah, there's that. It was a very good book. I liked it. Next, not so weird this time. I finished reading Evermore. Or I listened to Evermore, which is the second in the series. It was Everless and Evermore. So I finished this little series. This is again by Sarah Holland. I really did like it. It was worth the read. If I had to read it again, I would. It unfolded very uniquely. Like, it was very interesting. There were parts that I was like, oh, we're gonna find this out, it's gonna be this, or it's gonna be that. Like, I had my own kind of like idea of what was gonna happen, and like it sort of did that, but it sort of didn't. I feel like there's still more that, I don't know, it could have been expanded. I guess it's just one of those things. Anyway, so this is the ending. We get to find out about, like I said, in Everless, we learn about the sorceress and the alchemist. And we get to expand on that. We figure out who the alchemist is. We explore that, them remembering and going through some stuff. We find out more about the sorceress, and then we find out about the origins and kind of where that led through time, because the alchemist keeps slipping back into the past and then moving forward as things unfold. So I really did enjoy that aspect of it, that like kind of like time jump. I really love time jumps. I know sometimes they can get confusing, but this one doesn't, because like we follow the people into the area, and then from there it will spark, and like we kind of know what's coming. So it was done in a very good way. We're not confused by the time jump. And I really did like it. I just wish it could have expanded more on it. Maybe it was a time crunch. Maybe she decided, like, I just want these 2 stories and, like, that's kind of it. But I would have really liked to kind of expand on the story, because I think the concept is really good. And I would like to learn a little bit more about this whole, like, blood iron thing where, like, you're bleeding for your time. And I don't know. I just kind of wanted to know a little bit more about it, because I thought it really was good. And they weren't very long books. Like, they were short reads. You know, even listening to the audiobooks, it was like a really pretty fast-paced story. So I guess it's like even just a few more chapters in each book to expand a little bit, I just would have appreciated. So there's that. Oh, and I have been leading, I led my last one last night we did book club on Big Magic. So I did reread Big Magic this month as well, and kind of dove into the text of that. I created, you know, like questions with it and topics to talk about, and my little group of people that did the book club with me, we really did have some amazing discussions. We had so much to talk about in each little part of Big Magic. So I will say it again. I recommend this book to anyone, whether you are quote unquote creative or not, whether you think you're creative or not. This has nothing to do with art per se, you know, like music and paintings and, you know, writing and art. Like it's not about what it is. It's about the act of creating, which we create every day. So anyway, I'm not going to go back into it. I'm just going to say being able to read it again and explore it from a different level to like have a discussion group about it really expanded this book and made me love it even more, and really kind of again like really brought up and sparked so many things within me. So anyway, it's a good book. So yeah, that was April. I mean, little chat about Game of Thrones. No spoilers. I won't spoil anything. I just finished watching episode 4 last night, and there's only 2 left. I don't want it to end, but like I still, again, like there's the book to look forward to, and there's like some talks about other things going on, and like I'm like, it'll be okay. It'll be okay. Oh, I don't know. It's been a good season thus far. There's a lot of questions. There are certain storylines where I'm just like, I don't feel like this is done. How is it this simple? I don't want to give any spoilers, but I'm just saying, like, I'm not even going to say what storyline I mean that for, but like there are certain things where I'm like, this doesn't seem right. It doesn't seem like things should be this simple. It just seems more complex, but we'll see. We'll see how this all plays out. So I am enjoying Game of Thrones season 8 thoroughly. I'm in it to win it, y'all. So I hope you guys enjoyed this short and simple wrap up. I guess it's short. I'm gonna try to make it short. I don't know if that's gonna work. But I will be working on a couple more things for May. Hopefully we got some more exciting things. I've got a few books that I'm reading right now, and I'm dialing back my podcast and just a lot of other stuff going on. So I will talk to you guys very soon. Thanks for hanging out with me. If you're looking for me, I have all my links below: Instagram, Etsy, you can book a reading, Patreon, all kinds of stuff. And I will talk to you guys very soon. Remember to like and subscribe because it really helps me out. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I will see you guys very soon. I'm sending you all my love. Mwah! Later, Gators.